All right, welcome into the latest in our training camp reports down here at Paycor Stadium. Paul Dehner Jr., Jay Morrison. We are here with you. We survived.
Barely.
Not everyone did.
No.
But we managed to survive and advance to tomorrow on one of the hottest, nastiest practices you will ever see. And a lot happened. So we have a lot to get to. We, of course, implore you to tell your friends, follow along to our YouTube channel here, the Growler Podcast, give us nice ratings, all of those things. We really appreciate it to help us. We're doing these every day after training camp as we go on. And this one was a doozy. Takeaway, play, thing they say, take it away.
So where do you want to start? You want to start takeaway? You want to
start with your takeaway? What do you got?
All right, my takeaway is how much money could you have won if you predicted the first interception of Bengals training camp and the first interception of Joe Burrow was rookie 7th-round pick Dejon Anthony? That's what happened. He got the first pick last week against Jake Browning. Burrow hadn't thrown an interception all camp. He threw one today. It wasn't 7-on-7, so that Joe Burrow even said today he forces things a little bit more in 7-on-7. Takes some chances he wouldn't normally take. But Dejon Anthony's been really impressive. The fact that he's in there with the ones in 7-on-7 says a lot right there. And then he jumped a route on Mike Gesicki, got the ball. He said that he saw it and walked through, and his coaches and some of the other slots, Jalen Davis, Mike Hilton, were telling him how to play that route. And he puts it into action a few hours later and picks off Joe Burrow. And got a long way to go to make this team, but really impressive guy. He's got an incredible story working his way up from Sheridan College to walking on at Liberty and switching to playing cornerback. And now here he is in the NFL, and just a fun guy to talk to, and a heck of a story. He can say he had Joe Burrow's first interception of training camp 2024.
I was happy to be able to inform him that was Joe Burrow's first interception of camp. And he didn't know. And to see the smile kind of come across his face, and just pocket that and then move on to the next play. But yeah, a fun moment for him. My takeaway is the real freaking camp is here. So I was talking to Logan Wilson after practice in the locker room, and he was just kind of doing this dazed stumble and kind of gave me this look like, man, he goes, I lost 8 pounds in that practice.
Jesus.
He's like, I was like, is that normal? He said, I mean, maybe sometimes I'm a 4 guy. Wow. He goes, but the weight that I just saw, I haven't seen on a scale since I was in high school. And he's like, I was taking fluids. I was trying to keep up. And this was your second day in pads. It was a long practice. Yeah. And there was tons of, drive, move the ball. You're going play to play. There's no let up and moving around. And it was taking it out of people. Amarius Mims left. He said he's fine and going to be back tomorrow, but he didn't want to get into it. But we can imagine when you're 6'8", 350 and it's hot like that and it gets going, maybe that had something to do with it. Jermaine Burton left. A couple other players left. We had players getting cramps all the time. Yeah. And Cam Sample had a serious injury. We don't know the full extent of it, but went down holding his leg, knee, calf area, had to get carted off. It was one of those practices. It's just like, it's here, man. This is it. And I think that Zach Taylor, after we've made our jokes here, and we've talked about the ramp up period and how this was real stuff, and you learn a lot about your team. That's why I think we learned a lot today, because they were putting the pressure on them all day in the heat. 96 degrees out there. You would have had me convinced it was 115.
Yeah, super humid. They even at the end of the practice, they did this thing where it's a competitive offense versus defense. Offense scores, they get 7 points. Defense scores, or defense holds them to a stop, they get 7 points. If it's a field goal, offense gets 3, defense gets 4. They play to 18. They didn't finish. They both the offense and the defense ran. I asked Dan Pitcher, did it end at a tie? And he said, yes, that was a tie. He kind of laughed. I don't think it was an actual tie. I think it was just the fact that they had to call it off. They were not going to go until they got to 18.
Yeah, it was. They'd had enough
to
say it.
So would we.
And everybody is trying to get their fluids and their food to maybe get their weight back up to where you're supposed to be. All right, Jay, keep it going. What do you got for play?
For the play was the very first play of 11 on 11. We saw Joe Burrow air one out to T. Higgins. T had to wait on a little bit, but it was a great pass. We hadn't seen a lot of that from Joe Burrow. And then what was really interesting is so they did that what was it, 5 reps, then the 2s come in, then the next time they come out, same thing. First play, Joe's trying to go deep. He had T down the field, didn't quite like the coverage, and so he pulled it down and kind of checked it down to Trenton Irwin. And I asked him about that after practice when he was sitting up here at the podium. It's like, a lot of quarterbacks use camp to kind of test their limits and see what they can get away with. And why didn't he just chuck that deep ball? And he said every day's different. Some days he would have just aired it out, seen what he could have done. But he said some days you want it to be more game-like, and he wouldn't have thrown that pass in a game, and so he didn't throw that pass in practice today. But the fact that they wanted to, that it was there, and he opened it with a deep ball, and he was going to try it again on the next series, I just think it shows the progression, because we haven't seen a lot of that. We've seen him throwing more deep in training camp than we did in OTAs, but still hasn't been a lot of it. And I think that's a good sign that he's starting to open it up.
Yeah, no doubt. And there was a couple of balls. He could have hit a couple more today. The one to Trenton Irwin, Geno Stone just nicked it at the last second, and Irwin wasn't able to come down with it. Had one up the seam to Irwin that he couldn't hold on to and drop. Chase Brown had a drop today. But I still think, another day where the theme continues here. And my play is actually kind of almost a back-to-back play, and that was back-to-back third downs, and they were driving the ball and getting down inside the red zones, and they caught a 3rd and long because Jackson Carman had false started on 3rd and short and got yanked out, and it was a little longer, and you ended up with Charlie Jones on Mike Hilton running out of the slot, and he worked his way open, got open to the sideline for a connection to move them down and closer to the goal line. They end up in a 3rd and goal from 3 later on, and Andre Yoshivash, one-on-one on the outside against Dax Hill, is able to get open, running a route and coming back towards the pylon. He told us afterwards, and Burrow did as well, he had a press conference sitting here and mentioned that that's a route that he's done with Jamar Chase a ton. And if you see it, I have it up on my Twitter page. You will recognize this route where you go up and run back to the pylon and try to catch it right at that front pylon. And it was one that Yoshivash said, I've watched that on film. I've watched how Jamar's done it. You take tips from that and you go out there, and there he was in the Jamar Chase role, and Burrow primary target looking for him, and he makes the play. It continues to build for him and for Charlie Jones, who stacked a couple of days here. The young receivers taking advantage of the reps and continuing to show that jump from year 1 to year 2.
And Dax recognized it, and Dax tried to steal the outside leverage on that. And I asked Yoshivash about that. I was like, what do you do? You're supposed to work to the outside, and they're not letting you. And he said, that's why Jamar runs it. He's big, strong, and physical. I'm big, strong. He's like, you just got to fight through it. That's what the route is, and you got to make it happen. And he did. He made it happen. So it was really, really good. But it was the only touchdown of that whole period.
Yep. All right, let's wrap it up with Thing They Say.
All right, Thing They Say. I've got it written down here. This was Joe Burrow after practice. His mindset, his athleticism, his size, his willingness to be coached, grow, and learn is all A+. We've talked about this guy a lot. Amarius Mims, that's who he was talking about. Just the praise just continues to roll in for that guy. And, even though he did leave practice early today, as you said earlier, it wasn't serious. He kind of laughed it off. I asked him, well, just dehydrated? He said, I ain't going to get into it. I said, well, is the summer in Cincinnati different than the summer in Georgia? He said, the heat's the heat. And so I think that's what it was. It was hot for everybody out there. You can imagine a guy his size, better to play it smart, go in, get some fluids. He said he will be back tomorrow. So fully expect to see him back out there, which is a good sign because, as you mentioned, his replacement was Jackson Carman. Comes in, immediate false start, yanked out of the drill for Cody Ford. They need Amarius Mims back in there. Doesn't sound like we're going to see Trent Brown for maybe another week or so.
Yeah, and not a good day for Jackson Carman either. No. So mine is going to be another thing that Joe Burrow said to us today, and we were, of course, asking him about Jamar Chase, who, again, 7 for 7 as far as practice, sitting out amid communication happening about an extension possibility. How much time do you need with him, right? And he said a couple of practices. Give me a little bit of individual work and be out there. But after that, it was about his negotiation. And he said, I went through it last year. So I kind of have some insight into how these things kind of go. So we've been creating a dialogue and talking through certain things. Obviously, his business is his business, but I've been able to give some insight into how my process was because I think it's pretty similar.
Yeah.
So admitting like, hey, I'm helping you through the process. Don't forget, Burrow was doing this time last year behind the scenes. You know, he was out of sight, out of mind because of the calf, but this is exactly what he was going through as well. And he didn't end up signing until the Thursday during our live show at 50 West, but doesn't say the Thursday of the opener. And now you wonder, he's just talking about a couple of practices and one individual.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll be a thing where we're talking about the same type of thing with Jamar Chase. Who knows how long it will go at this point, but we've now reached the saying the quiet part out loud portion of the program.
Yeah.
Like everybody knows what's going on, and kind of an admittance, I think, that it could be a while, and Burrow's trying to help Jamar work his way through that. It will play itself out, but that's what it is right now. All right, that wraps it up. We're back earlier tomorrow. Yeah. They go right from this night that was a super tough evening practice, or later practice, I should say, to 11 o'clock. They're going to get going in the heat again tomorrow. And because the Luke Combs concert is here tonight, who was at the show, at the practice today.
Quite the attraction, too.
Yeah, how about
chopping it up with Duke Tobin for a long time during practice.
Jamar and T, Sam Hubbard, all over there hanging out with Luke Combs. The star is born. Star is born as he showed up here. Everybody was excited to see him. But yeah, so we'll have the concert is here this weekend. So earlier tomorrow, we'll get you something. We might be doing it. We might be outside, back out in the elements.
Can we do a Luke Combs themes again tomorrow with a
there you go
song?
Foo Fighters last weekend. Luke Combs. You'll have to tell me what those songs are because I'm not quite as up
Wikipedia.
on it. All right, I'll do that. All right. Thanks everybody for watching. We'll talk to you tomorrow.